You can do it. Let me just check this house.
All right, Parashat Behar. Check. Parashat Behar. Parashat Behar is what I consider to be maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe the most environmental parasha in terms of that. I mean, there are other environmental issues in other parashayot, but I think this one is quite significant for me, and I think maybe we'll be able to see, hopefully we'll be able to see why. So, since we are right now in the year of Shemitah. Shemitah, for those of you who forgot, is it's the sabbatical year of the land, in which you're not allowed to grow or work the land. You have to basically leave it alone for like a whole year. There are very few things you're allowed to do. If you have trees, you're allowed to water them, but to the amount that the trees will not die, but not turn into soil. You can plant a garden, and so on and so forth. Depends on what kind of pruning you need to do. If it's pruning that is going to affect the tree, because certain trees, by the way, grow on second year and so on. So it's a little complicated. It's very interesting halachot. I remember growing up in Israel, going in religious neighborhoods. You could tell the religious neighborhood from non-religious neighborhoods in terms of what they do to the gardens and the buildings and so on and so forth. And it's amazing. You have to make your fruit care and so on. But again, I mean, it seems such a big deal. But what's so special about this mitzvah of Shemitah? What's so special about it? Why we drove ourselves crazy over this thing? So I'm going to tell you this quite straight out of the oven. I mean, right as they say, right out of the gate. Mitzvah Shemitah helps you to calibrate your outlook to the nature or to the world of nature around you. That's what it does, among other things. And it also teaches you not to take nature and its beautiful wonders for granted as like something that it's going to be there regardless of that. It's always going to be here and so on and so forth. Also, it teaches you to really understand that regardless popular belief of many people out there in the world, nature does have a boss, does have a leader, does have somebody who runs it. So the Shemitah really awakens us a certain feeling of respect and wonder towards the created world. And this relationship really gives us a great meaning to our world itself, to our world as us right now for the Shemitah. We need to understand that the world and nature does not exist, but it's in constant movement. Existing, I mean, it's here and it's not changing. It's in a constant state of movement, and it is quite determined. There is a purpose and determination in nature that is just unbelievable. If you would, unfortunately, we live in a community or in that it's very hard to get in touch with the land. I mean, so much. Think about it. When was the last time that your feet actually touched dirt? I mean, not dirt from the street, like dirt, like soil. We walk on concrete. We are so disconnected. We have shoes that are so comfortable on top of concrete. We're disconnected from the soil. And and don't think that it doesn't affect. It affects the way we walk and affects the way we see. It affects our health altogether. And maybe one day I'll expand to that. But we're missing out tremendously here. And there is a constant movement in nature, and the movement is always up. I mean, if gravity pulls us down, trees should have gone down deeper, but here, if you look at nature, everything grows upwards. There's a tremendous musar to learn. So if you work in a garden, by the way, you can, just a garden, I'm not talking about growing and becoming a farmer. You would, at least for me, I'm amazed at the wisdom of things like weeds. Not the weeds, weeds. They're so sophisticated. they have such urge to live. It's unbelievable. Years ago, I had an oak tree that grew, like a seedling. They grew next to the retaining wall of my house. So I asked somebody to come and help me to dig it. And it was a seedling. It was like this big, but it was so deep inside. So together with that, finally we got the whole entire thing. The year after, my whole entire garden got covered with weeds that I've never seen before. They were dormant there for I don't know how many years. I've lived in my house already for 27 years. I've never seen them. So they've been there for at least 20 years. It's just amazing. They've never been there. And they started where I dug it. So you could learn tremendous lessons about life with just going outside to nature. So there is and you can only learn when there is a purpose into this learning. So it's unbelievable. And there is a tremendous power that is generated, the basic of nature, and what we call the divine power. Kadosh Baruch Hu conducts the whole world. You really see it. He rules the world, he conducts it, he supervises it, and it needs to make sure that it would develop appropriately. God then put in place the laws of nature to operate with a tremendous wisdom that it's beyond any ability of any human, or maybe all humans put together, to actually understand. So we call it also the concept of tikkun olam. But what is exactly, how does this process of tikkun olam, fixing the world, is actually taking place? Or maybe before we even start with the concept which everybody uses, tikkun olam, let me ask us a question. What in the world is tikkun olam? But Kadosh Baruch Hu, so wonderful and amazing, created the world that is not perfect, that I need to fix? Well, it doesn't make sense. It's ridiculous to think that. So what is tikkun olam? And you'll see there are many concepts in this parasha, that many verses that people use all the time, or expressions that people use, and we don't even think about them. One of them is tikkun olam. If you think about tikkun olam, to make this world, to make this world into a better place. All right, what's so bad about it now? Why do I need to fix it? Right? So we stand here and we look at the universe. There's a tremendous universe out there. Look at the stars, look at the galaxies, whatever is happening there. Look at the ocean. The oceans. The oceans is unbelievable. Mountains. It's just amazing. That's why it's very important to go out hiking and to go out to nature. And to go out to nature and to actually find a place and contemplate on nature and so on. This is very, very important, right? And once you start to realize that and you go outside to nature, you really will make you humble. It's a humbling experience. When you stand next to, mountains that have been there for, millions of years. Or you look at a tree and you're saying, oh my goodness, that's an oak tree. First of all, see how big it is and how majestic it is. And this tree, for sure, by the size of it, being here for at least 100 something years, and it's just getting better. One second. I'm getting older, I'm getting worse. How amazing it is to have a tree. It puts you in place. So not only it makes you in place and puts you in place in front of nature, but without a doubt into the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that created such an amazing piece. And we're talking about trees. If you ever think about it, how does the tree, it's an amazing system, how a tree, for example, gets all the nutrients all the way up to the top. You can have a tree that's like 70 feet tall, and nutrients go all the way up to the top of the tree. What musar do I learn from this? How this is going to affect me? And this is not something new. Even David HaMelech in Tehillim says, what did he say? Ki yireh shamecha ma'aseh etzbeotecha yarech v'kochavim asher konanta. Because I would look at the skies, which is the product of your doing. I see the moon. I see the sky in which you establish. Ma enosh ki tizkereu. What is a human that you actually remember? Why you pay attention to human? Uven adam ki tifkedenu. What are we that we are so? Why do we think that we are so important, right? So from an external point of view, which is really quantitative and chronological, mankind is really a small, insignificant creature in the whole creation, the whole divine creation altogether. So much that even David HaMelech was wondering, why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu paying such great attention to something so insignificant as humanity? But yet, from another point of view, right, we said that mankind, humanity, is the greatest of all creations. Right? It's the end. It's the final act of creation. And it really conducts and rules over creation in terms of the way it says, "Vatechsarenu me'at me'Elohim." You made mankind a little less than God. Ukvod vehadarta atereu, and you put upon him honor and glory. Tamshileu b'maaseh yadecha. You made humanity a ruler on your own creation. So yes, humanity is small in a small aspect, but it has an ability to really understand and identify the process of the world itself, and by doing so, to really either make the world into something so fantastic and make it into a good place, or God forbid, to destroy it. I mean, we do say, Kol ha'metzil nefesh achat kilu tzil olam umlo. And a person, if you save a person, like you save a whole entire world. So we are like the universe in a small scale, but a universe nevertheless. So it seems that the description of what we call act of creation, Maaseh Bereshit, in the Torah, and the mitzvah of Shemitah are really stem from that point of view. They're not just dry data or parameters that tell us that the world was created by God and so on and so forth, but more so, there are tools for us, and are very important tools for us, to really calibrate ourselves to do what is considered to be the proper Avodat Hashem. And it's not something that we should take for granted. What does it mean, proper Avodat Hashem? We think that many times we do favors to God, that we keep His mitzvot. And that's not the case. Proper Avodat Hashem is something that needs to be measured very, very carefully all the time. And we need to think about it almost on every step of our way, every step that we do, every action that we do throughout the day. Has to be measured according to that. Avodat Hashem, require for one pen. It's all about contradictions. On one hand, you need to really strengthen and enhancing your humbleness, to really humble all the time. And the other hand, you really have to control the urge of man that he is, in a way, the peak of creation itself. And we need to understand that what we need to do is really refine the reality of materialistic reality, and really to make it refined as what we call a tzelem Elokim, as an image of God. And on the other hand, we're very much materialistic, like any of the beast, right? So we really need to establish a certain sense of collaboration between ourselves and creation. And that's, by the way, true to anything that you are being given a job to take care of. You cannot take care of, there are many ways of taking care of things, but you cannot appropriately take care of things without establishing a certain connection. For example, if you have a kid, you need to maintain your kid. You need to take care of your kid. in order to do it appropriately, you need to establish a certain relationship. You need to establish means of communication, whether it's parents, whether it's workers, whether it's anything, students, anything. It has to be a certain, ways of communication to establish that so you could care for them. Otherwise, you're not caring. You are maybe a tyrant. I don't know, whatever it is that you're doing, but you're not taking care. So we need to establish this cooperation and to remember that we are very small and insignificant with the vast spaces that is out there in the world. On the other hand, we need to also understand how important and great is a job that was given to us as humans and even more so as Jews. You need to make sure that you're humble, but yet have enough self-esteem to do the job that you were given to do. Moshe Rabbeinu was an example for that. Moshe Rabbeinu was extremely humble to the point that even God gives a testimony there was nobody more humble than him ever. And yet, he was the greatest prophet ever. So how do you live with that? That's why only a person like that could do what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Only a person like that could care as Moshe Rabbeinu did. Only that. Otherwise you can't. So, and by doing so, we need to understand that this is how we can start approaching to fix the whole entire world and all its parts, whether they're existential, like for example, environment and so on and so forth, and quality, which is, we are obligated, what I feel, midoraita, to be very responsible for our environment. Well, I'm not saying turn it into a political agenda. Anything that you turn into a political agenda is, as far as I'm concerned, a form of idol worshipping. Okay? But midoraita, we have a commandment. For example, bal tashchit. Don't destroy. We're not allowed to cut trees. Not only fruit-bearing trees, any trees, because I just feel like it. You're allowed to use trees, for example, for your needs. You want to build a house. You want to use make a firewood. So then you're allowed. But just like I want to exercise. I saw one time a short video, an old video of Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. How is he working out? One of the things is took an axe and start chopping a tree. And I said to myself, what a shame, just to exercise yourself is to beat up people, you're cutting trees. It just doesn't make sense. So even just a tree, you're not allowed to. I feel like taking a flower and just, ripping a flower. Why? Wait a minute. That's midoraita. We're obligated. So whatever it is, bal tashchit, don't destroy. So, we need to make sure that we are doing the responsible thing. And I'm not going now just driving, electric cars and so on and so on, because, I'm not an expert in that, but I'll tell you that probably there's greater damage to the environment by creating batteries for electric cars than actually fossil fuels. If you want to know. That's what I think. But, we have to be responsible. There's so many different things that we have to be responsible. You can't just kill things for fun. Like going hunting. Oh, I feel like hunting a deer. Do you eat deer? No, I'm a vegan, but I want to kill a deer. What's that wicked, sport hunting? Yeah. How about I shoot you for fun? Let's see how that feels. Oh, listen, I feel like punching some. I feel like smashing some noses today. Let me just come in here, Tata. What is wrong with you? We have to make sure not only that we give this world to the future generation as we got it, it's our job to give it better, to make sure it's better. So that's the environmental aspect of that. But we also need to make sure that we establish a certain parts of the world that are spiritual. For example, we need to make sure, and that's one of the mitzvot of the Noachite mitzvot, to have a court system. That it's and to that matter, and I'm going to tell you something. Today the courts are up in scrutiny and so on and so forth. The Supreme Court, the this and that. But I'm going to tell you something about what I believe about the American judicial system. I don't believe that if there is any judge that is out there that would vote or rule based on political agenda versus what they think is the interpretation of the law and the Constitution. And talking about this Roe versus Wade versus milk, kind of whatever it is out there, the Supreme Court, yeah. Everybody's saying, oh, it's Republican, it's Democrats. Look, for example, you have a state like New York State. New York State, I think the only Republican that I can remember being a governor was Pataki. And that was like the time of the flood.
1%.
Yeah, something like that. And so therefore all the judges in New York were all voted by Democrats, right? And yet, I don't think that the courts in New York vote according to Democratic Party lines. They vote according to what the law is. And that is a contribution that we had in place. The American Constitution is a wonderful, wonderful example of how the law should be among the Goyim, among the nations. And it's beautiful, and that's our job as humans first, and then as Jews as well, to maintain a certain level of human and divine dignity and morals. That there is going to be a court system, that the people are going to be able to be judged according. And I'll tell you the truth. I mean, for me, it bothers me. You're going to law school, but no offense. But it bothers me that sometimes you look at law and lawyers and everything is a plea bargain and this thing. It's like, if you believe, if you are a defense lawyer, right, and you believe that your client is 100% innocent, so don't take any plea bargains. That's what I believe in. I mean, today, and if you feel that the guy is completely guilty, so hold him accountable for that. Don't give him a plea bargain. But, I mean, we need to make sure that this is in place. And that's the law is going to be a just law. Of really law and order, not just a TV program. And this is our job, to keep morals in place. And morality. And virtues. And not to come to the place that we are today, when morals is what certain words were used to be before, right? When you want to give people nicknames. Well, since I'm a Jew, I can call myself a kike, right? So other ethnic groups, so you call them whatever you call them. So today, morals is just as bad as if you call somebody something. God forbid, you say you have morals. You're considered to be primitive. But that's our job. So when we as Jews betray our job to increase morality and morals, to be liked by other people, so people would say that we are enlightened and we're not primitive, we are betraying our job. That's the way I look at it. Whatever somebody does, for example, in the bedrooms, that's their own business. And how they do it, that's their own business. But I know what morality is. So this double look that we have all the time, this hello Avner. So this moving forces, these contradictions that we have all the time. On one hand, we have to be very aware of our job and the magnitude of our job, and yet we have to be completely humble. That contradiction is brought in what the Rav Kook brought in terms of the two different parts and the appropriate measure to really create this how to deal with that. And he refers to what is called Yahadut Shel Ha'avar, the Judaism of the past. In other words, from Egypt until now, from the time we were in Egypt until now, he describes as a long war against nature and the ugly side of nature, in terms of the urges and whatever urges there will be to rule other people, to kill other people, to no control and so on and so forth, which is a humanistic. It's a whole humanity is like that, and even a battle against the dark parts of our nation and the dark parts in each and every one as an individual as well. So our job from then until now was really to fight nature, to win the battle, and to really eradicate it from our houses and to make it surrender to us, to what we know. And that's the first step, is subduing nature by men, so the spirit of man and his morals would really guide your materialistic entities and not the other way around. That you're going to be led by your morals and by your humanistic side, by your spirit, not by your urges. And that is the intent of Judaism in terms of starting the whole concept of what we call Tikkun Olam, which is Tikkun Olam, according to Rav Kook, is Shilton HaNeshama Al HaTeva Hagas, making spirituality or your spirit rule over your unrefined, or the refined spirit on the unrefined matter. That's in terms of that. And that war many times demands a certain aspect of tyranny of us on nature itself, and sometimes removing ourselves and avoiding part of our nature, and that is of course the first and maybe necessary steps to do so. After that comes the more refined stage, the steps where nature and matter don't really interrupt one another, and they live in a certain state of equilibrium. And they're no more than just like appropriate vessels for the holy, for whatever is holy. That's why he writes. But to take nature and to take matter, to that matter, and to make it into appropriate tools in which, or vessels in which they by themselves would light and would express the human soul and what we call Tzelem Elokim, the image of God, that is a totally step by itself. That is a very demanding and deep stage that needs a lot of effort, a lot of concentration, and a continuous movement of holiness and purity. You need to be very refined spiritually and actually refine life itself. When I'm talking about refined life, I'm not talking about getting manicure from blind geisha from Moscow. Talking about refined life, not wearing silk and eating caviar. Talking about refining life, about something that's completely different than what we think it is. We need Eliyahu for that. Eliyahu the Hanavi, right? To come and announce what we call shalom, which is harmony, in the inner soul of our nation first of all, which is a unstoppable force of emergent pure natural energy from us. And that stream will bring us closer and closer and closer towards the holy, or holy of holies, towards God, towards becoming a holier nation. And to do so, we need we need to understand that there is a great humanistic need that maybe comes to an expression in what Rashi asks about the first psukim in the Parashat. And the famous question that Rashi asks is, Ma kashur shmita le'Har Sinai. That's another expression that people use all the time. What's the connection between Har Sinai and Shemitah? They came right after that, right? So the question of Rashi really comes to express the human need to find order in life, to find some kind of sense, some kind of higayon in our lives. Most of us, if not all of us, are really looking for something that it makes sense to us. Listen, it needs to make sense to me. How many times you heard that? But that's good. Okay, if it doesn't make sense, I don't do it. Of course, you need to understand who you're dealing with. I mean, I would rather things to make sense to people, they'll do it because it makes sense to them. But that's just the beginning stage. So we all want something to make sense to us, right? We need to find the connection, the circumstances, that would fit and that would make sense. So our outlook on life is usually through what we call sechel, through intellect. It's a very intellectual, today it's not so common to be so intellectual, but, supposedly an intellectual thing. It needs to make sense to me. And it's a point of view that whatever is logical is happening. And whatever is not logical does not exist. Of course. Tell this to a quantum physics, he would laugh at you, or physicist, he will laugh at you, right? And I mean, listen, we count on our logic that is going to come and is going to create some kind of order in the chaos of our lives. Our lives are very chaotic. So we need we feel that we need some kind of a tool, and then, okay, it makes sense, so let's put it together. And by the way, this is how you're being controlled all the time. And somebody needs to make sense to you, and then he arranges your life, and by doing so, when somebody else arranges your life, you are his slave. Because, right, Yitzchak, what do we say? You can have freedom when it's not in your hand. Remember who said that? You don't remember? No. You can't really have freedom when it's not in your hand? I don't need your civil war. Oh, that's right. You see? Rosenberg. Arav Rosenberg. So, maybe by doing so, maybe by having some kind of logic that will control the chaos of our life, maybe we'll have some kind of sense of security that would allow us to continue to do what we keep on doing day to day, day in, day out, and so on and so forth. And by doing so, we'll be happy. Nothing changed. Same old, same old. It's all good, right? So look how we're thinking. But the truth is that it's not like that. But rather, it's always, this kind of a life always brings us to enhanced level of anxiety and a horrific quality of life. Horrific quality of life. I mean, look around you. Look around you. In Har Sinai, Bnei Israel were able to connect to something that is above sechel, above logic, above the world. And they understand that sometimes you need to, or most of the time, if not all the time, you need to give up on the effort to create logical connections. And this is really the whole concept of Shemitah. Shemitah is to leave, to let go something that is logical. Leave the logical. I mean, we know everybody, every Am Haaretz will tell you. What they will tell you? What they will tell you right away. Besides Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah, that's like the most common line in every Am Haaretz. What will they tell you? Im ein Lechem, and Torah, right? That's the higayon, that's the common sense. That's a common sense, so that's a dialogue. The Am Haaretz tells you, Im en lechem en Torah. That's logical. You don't work, no trabajo, no dinero, no bread. Right? But no, we don't know. For us, it doesn't work like this. The answer of the Talmid Chacham to the Am Haaretz is, Habibi, אתה לא מבין, you got it wrong. Im en Torah en lechem. The other way around. Im en Torah en lechem. And we got this in the event of Har Sinai. And we don't understand that. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says right away, guys, Shemitah. Come into the land, Shemitah. I remember. That's the connection between Har Sinai and Shemitah. So we understand, the Zohar tells us, and again, Shemitah is, the letters is Shin, Mem, Tet. Shin, Mem, Tet. Which is,
59.
Yes. Which is a very interesting gematria because it's one less than 360.
Gematria Mashiach also.
Gematria Mashiach. So, but that's what I said to you, Eliyahu. That's what we said, Eliyahu. If you think Mashiach will come because you made sense, because the events that you would think Mashiach will come will be logical to you, I gotta tell you something, guys. You got it all wrong. Got it all wrong. Mashiach, Shemitah, Shamat, only come when you're going to let go of the sechel, of the higayon, the logical, and you're going to go into the realm of emunah, each to his own level. And I'm saying each to his own level. You have to realize where you are, and then develop from that point and up. If let's say Yitzchak Emunah is up in Shamayim, high, and I'll try to imitate him when I'm not there, I'm going to fail. Each to his level. That's why you got to know where you are. So the Zohar tells us that it's lishmot means to let go, to give up, and we need to understand, to learn, and to understand that if we are connected ourselves to some particular thing, for example, to our body, to our house, to our belongings, to relationships, and so on and so forth, it doesn't mean that we own it. It doesn't mean we own it. You know, there are people who make money that they cannot waste in 10 times, in 10 lifetimes. But at the end of the day, everybody goes underground. Everybody's buried. So of course the question is, what did you do this all for? What was the purpose of that? We need to learn to understand, to disconnect from these things, and to pay attention to what is really important in order not to lose our way, and not to lose the path, and to remember that everything that we have was given to us for a purpose, for a reason. It is to make this world better, and not to make your life more comfortable. If somebody was giving something, a gift, it was given for a reason. If you want to talk about logic, well, that's the logic. Because the secret in life and secret of happiness really lays in, or depends on our ability to move and maneuvers between those contradictions that we said before, between the contradictions of life, and with the willingness to really let go of the sechel, of the intellect, for the joy of movement. Rabotai, the joy of movement. When a person, how did they say it? Running water don't run stale, something like that. What, clean water? Whatever it is.
Running water doesn't go stale.
That's what I just said. Yeah. Anyway, so, and this is exactly like Shabbat. By the way, the same thing like Shabbat. Shabbat, you say, hey, listen, I knew a guy who had a barber shop, okay? He used to open on Shabbat.
Killed it.
What?
He was killing it.
He was making a killing. And I said to him, and I said to his son, listen, close the shop. Don't work. No, Rabbi, you don't understand. I'll make all my money on Shabbat. I said to him, close it. They finally closed it. He said to me, he came to me after a year. He said, I got to tell you something. Since I closed it, I make more money. I don't know how, but I make more money. Everybody started to go to him. That's the way it works, Rabotai. Shabbat is the same thing. Everybody, and what do we say when we finish the Masechta? Hem ratzim v'anu ratzim. Everybody's running. But where are you running? Shabbat comes. Everybody says, work, 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 work. Right? Mucho trabajo, poco dinero. Right? Work, work, work. Comes Shabbat and says, okay, I'm done. Shabbat, I'm done. That's the whole Shabbat. Let go. The Shvita of the land, like the Shvita of Shabbat. It's really amazing. We need to, in order to do Shemitah, what we are trying to do is to elevate what we call, I don't know why is that, but farmers don't really get or deserve, they don't get the credit in which they deserve. Farmers usually are considered to be peasant and, like this. I think, I wish that our celebrities in our society would have been, first of all, our soldiers, and our farmers. I'll tell you that much. Not some kind of quack job in Hollywood. But to elevate something so earthy, like being a farmer, into something that is avodah ruchanit, into a spiritual work, that's what Shemitah is all about. We have to remember the cycle of seven, and then 7 days for a boy, 8th day, Milah. 7 days of the week, 6 days of the week, then 7 comes, Shabbat. 7 years, 7 times, Yovel. And that's very, very important. Comes the 50th year, you have to bring everything back. Everything goes back to its original thing. So when you reach 50 years of your life, you have to start thinking about when you're going to hand the keys over. You have to let go. And that's why your body gets weaker. Because if we will be strong as we are when we're 50, as we were 20, Sam, we will destroy the world in 2 days. That's why our body gets weaker. We get smarter. Our body gets weaker. You have to understand. You have to bring it back to where it was. Everything goes back to the original. It's time for you to let go of your materialistic craziness and bring back the neshama the way you got it. You need to make sure you bring your neshama at least as good as it was when you got it. 50 years. That's your Shemitah. Everything, remember, we spoke about before, the person is like a whole entire world. And the nature in the generation of Jewish revival, which is going to be, we had added, really wants to come in its all might, but this time with holiness and with multicolor, glowing colors. And we are capable of doing so, and I do believe so in the most basic way, after having so many years of exile, of galut, and so on and so forth. We need to explain to the world, to the nations, how good it is, how important it is to have morals. We need to push on learning Torah for our people. Because I can't believe how many people don't learn Torah. We have to push to learn Torah. We need to know also how to show the holiness in a most natural way, not only to fight against impurity, but also to show and present purity and open your houses on Shabbat. Do maaseh chesed, do acts of kindness. Everything asks us to, is knocking on the door. Even what we call the voices of impurity. And I'm going to tell you something. Even impurity, there is raging now in the world. It's knocking on our doors. But I'm going to tell you why it's knocking on our doors. It's knocking on our doors and we fall for it because we think that that's what it wants us to do. But even the forces of impurity knocking on our doors, begging us to bring them and make them to the light and to make them holy vessels, not impure vessels. Even the forces of impurity. We should understand that. It is very important. So therefore, tikkun olam, what we call chvod vehadar ta'atrehu, tikkun olam is really bringing the world to a state of spiritual flow by maintaining a constant balance of movement between materialistic and spiritual, but for one purpose, to make this world into a better place under God. Shabbat Shalom.